Welcome to AFL Uncensored. I'm your host, Teej Johannesson, and with me, as always, my co-host, Omari Fraser. Omari, I got to say, so I was, right before doing this podcast, I was, and I know this is a football podcast. Last week, our pre-show chatter was on the Super Bowl, but I do kind of want to expand a little bit with this podcast and talk about real life things as well. And I was watching this documentary on Netflix. It's called Stutz. Have you ever seen it? Stutz. You ever seen that?
Stutz. No, I think I saw the title of it, but I didn't click on it.
Okay, so Jonah Hill, the actor Jonah Hill, he was in Superbad, stuff like that. I'm sure everyone knows who Jonah Hill is. He basically filmed over 2 years sessions he was having with his therapist. And I found it to be, I guess I feel kind of compelled to talk about it because I found it was interesting to me that, two men essentially made a documentary about mental health and strategies and tools to deal with mental health. And I know it's something that, as men and especially football players and athletes, we don't talk about a lot, but my wife put it on tonight and I felt kind of compelled to just kind of say to anyone listening, I found it really useful and thought provoking. And I think it's something to worth watching. And so I don't know if anyone cares or so I kind of like to get a little sometimes philosophical about things. And I found that it was kind of like that. And yeah, I know it's just kind of a random thought, but if you haven't seen it, check it out. Stutz on Netflix.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out because I know he's been going through a journey of his own with his weight loss and this, that, his mental health on different things. I know mental health is definitely a big topic of our generation and more apparent in society. And this is now where when I look at football and being an athlete, I know there's a lot of guys where they'll tie your identity to football, and this is now where I guess with the coaching I've done in the past with kids and athletes and helping them grow is I remember the times where like I thought I was done in junior, and my mindset then where I was like, what's next? And just going through that of just like, okay, my identity is not just all in football, and just really, and like how I guess tie this all back is just with what I know now and just ensuring the next generation is like, yes, you're a football player now, but just learning how to untie your identity or just to untie it to just being football and allow it to be other things where, you're a football player that loves to play chess, that also does good in school and helps out in the community. And like, even if football wasn't there, you're still all these other things. So that's how I like that, how I relate to that and hearing the journey of Jonah Hill and all that.
Yeah. And I think that's such a good point just of, and that's kind of what I want to do in this podcast as well is have, I want to eventually, when this is all said and done, have as many players on here as possible. And so that people get to know people outside of football, because I've struggled with that in my own life is especially mostly with teammates, right? Because a lot of my teammates I don't see outside of football, right? Like it's not like we hang out with everybody that's on our team all the time. Like a lot of these guys I only see during football season, and I still consider them very close friends, but they only know kind of one side of me. And I think you're very right. It's nice to kind of delve a little bit into deeper who people are and what their interests are. So yeah, one of my interests is I like to watch thought-provoking things, and I just thought that was something to watch. So Stutz on Netflix, give it a go. Okay, I'm really excited about our guest today. I know I posted on our Facebook forum for some questions. I know we had a bunch of people ask questions, and I know this man is definitely not shy to speak his mind, and that's why I love him. I was fortunate enough to be a teammate of his for a year and get to know him that way, and I've really learned to grow and respect him and his way he goes about his business. And the one thing I've really realized is he just has a huge heart and he cares for a lot of people. And I'm really happy to welcome Dave Cuthbertson to the podcast. How you doing, Dave?
Hey, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I definitely couldn't wait to get you on here. And I know this is going to be a lot of fun. So we'll get into some good stuff. So first off, Dave, I know you've had an extremely long, complicated football career, but kind of give us the Cliff Notes version of your football journey. And specifically, I'd like to hear you talk about your father and your brother and their influence on your football life as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So to try to keep a long story short, my particular journey began way back in the mid to late '90s with the HMFA Ticats, which is minor football in Hamilton. I had to practice on the same field as my middle school team, so I assumed, you know what, I'll try out. It's convenient enough to refuse. Came out and tried that, and that pretty much started things going. As far as high school, just sum it up pretty quick. My senior year spent with St. John de Brebeuf in Hamilton. My last year, we won the Catholic City Championship. Went on to OFSA, GHAC, which is a local like high school provincials. Ended up losing to Nelson in the GHAC. And like you said before, during that time, like anyone does, goes through trials and tribulations of life. I left the game of football, made a pretty stupid choices as a teenager and whatnot. And then I got a pretty good wake up. Well, I won't say good. I got a wake up call. Like you said, my brother suddenly passed away, which to me was a whole nother thing to try to take in and comprehend. Like beforehand, you know, death is part of life, whatnot, but especially at that age, and just being where no matter how much you see it or you realize that for it to happen to you or at home, something like that, it just took me for a loop. So I kind of got away from the game for a little bit and whatnot, and kind of needed a little bit of a wake up call. So pretty much after my brother's passing, I kind of decided to find the game of football again, or better yet, to word it better, the game of football found me again, you could say. I joined the Steel City Ironmen, which was, they played in the OVFL, the Ontario Varsity Football League, which at the time was the premier rep league for about, at that time I was senior, so it would have been 17 and 19 years of age. I wanted to play pretty much. I'd been out of the game. I won't say I'd lost my interest, but I got into some other things. I forgot about that. Like you spoke on a previous podcast, that itch, you know, that football player itch. But I wanted to go out there. I wanted to honor my brother's name. He played on the same program, but he played obviously before his passing the junior program and was a standout for the team. So I thought I'd go out, you know what I mean, honor his name, whatnot. Spent 3 years there, rediscovered that itch for football. And better yet, it's hard to explain. Like I said, when all that happened with my brother, it was kind of just a shock to the system. I needed to kind of reality check again. And I was kind of in limbo, for lack of a better term. And it just let me know, it puts structure, if I can say so, back. I knew at least, instead of floating, Tuesday I had a practice. It was at this time. We had this to do. Thursday I had that practice. Saturday was a game. It just put structure back into my life where I had some kind of blips on the map or dots or something to connect to. And from there, obviously, like you guys both know, I don't have to explain the brotherhood that comes with football. And I really found that appreciation more than the minor, even high school is high school, your buddies. I don't think anything compares to that, but I found what football family truly means. And from there, I continued my football on the junior. I took the junior route, let's say, with the Burlington Braves of the OFC. First couple years there were terrible. We were 2-6. Our last year we put it together. Ended up defeating St. Leonard of Quebec and hosted the Nationals that year to VI Raiders. And they had a running back you're probably familiar with by the name of Andrew Harris. And to keep it short, he rushed for 297 yards, and that's when we lost the game 35-8.
So Dave, was that in 2008 or 2009?
That was 2008.
Oh.
2009, I know you guys played that same VI. That was in the midst of their dynasty run.
I was on the Wildcats, and we went and we beat Ottawa Sooners in the semifinal, and then we went up to VI to play Raiders in the national championship game, and we lost by 50.
Dude, so the one thing about that too is afterwards watching him kind of run all over guys in the CFL, it didn't make you feel as bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, okay, yeah, this guy's a stud. And Jordan Yance, their quarterback, was a stud too.
Oh, he was. Yeah. The combination and with their O-line, I remember their O-line average, whatever the size, it was a good football program. It was one of the better
Yeah,
runs.
I heard there was some sketchy stuff going on in VI with some owners and lots of money, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, I know when your owner is the Olympic torchbearer for the city run through your city that, he's got some
Oh, for
ties.
sure, yeah.
But yeah, so pretty much that, to connect it to now our conversation here on that '08 Burlington team, we happen to have a coach on our staff who happened to be an owner of an NFC team at the time, which at that time was the Milton Marauders, which they're non-existent now. But he asked me and a couple of guys, hey, do you want to come out and give it a look? And, we thought, okay, yeah, let's check it out. The coach, you know what I mean? We're running there. It's during the same time frame. So I thought I'd check it out. And then that comes onto the second half, not the yap away here, but like we spoke before, you mentioned previously, kind of this second blow that took place there within the 5 years is that my father passed away kind of in a pretty short time period. It was cancer, terminal. And once again, it was kind of tough because after my brother's passing, me and my father got as closer as we could have been. We were already very close, as close as the father. He was my best friend. And to lose him then was kind of, it kind of took the wind out of me again. And then I started questioning a lot. Nothing stupid, but just questioning kind of like what's going on here. And at the time I had just finished college, Dean's honor. So I was kind of really looking forward to going to university and whatnot for academic reasons, for sport reasons, and just to see what it had in store for me. And then to get blindsided like that. And I know to this day, my dad would kick me right in my ass for not following through. But it's just, I know the commitment it takes, academically speaking, not even the sports, to commit to a university. And I honestly, dude, it was the last thing on my mind. I was just completely lost. So again, it was kind of hard to put into words. I kind of hermited for a bit there, like a year or so, you know what I mean? Just stayed inside a little bit, kept to myself. Then when the dust settled, again, it was football that took me by my hand and led me out of the darkness. A friend of mine, a former teammate by the name Bone Crusher, was a guy. He played a big guy, 6'6", like 300 pounds, big athlete, played professional in UK, but was over here. He told me he had a team owner by the name of Didi that wanted me to come out for a camp with his team, which was at the time the Toronto Titans, which are now known as the GTA All-Stars. And that kind of started my route into this league.
Right. Okay. So, and I know you've played in the Maritimes League as well, and the Quebec League a little bit there too. And
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
and that's like, we'll come back to that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Let's talk specifically AFL and NFC. So for those that are listening that don't know, obviously the AFL is what we're a part of, the Alberta Football League, and the NFC is the Northern Football Conference, which is essentially Ontario. And then the winner of our leagues historically will play each other, alternating home sites each year in the national championship, which is, that's something Omari and I have talked about this before, but it's something incredibly unique in, men's sports, right? You don't get a lot of, there's no, rec league hockey national championships out there. So it's a really cool thing. And I love that about this.
Yeah, adds a little bit of a legitimacy to it, if you know what I mean.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. 100%. It adds that legitimacy. It's something to look forward to. And everyone always says, you haven't won a ring until you've won the national, right? And I believe that. So that's why I'm still playing, man. It's the only reason.
I know what's wrong with us.
Yeah. Fuck, I know. Let's talk about the differences, because you're really cool in the fact that you have played in both. You've seen the football, you've seen the fans, you've seen how everything's run. I just freelancing. Just talk about the differences between the AFL and the NFC, from talent to skill to fans to volunteers to everything.
Yeah, well, for starters, like to start off with the obvious thing, or the thing that kind of hit me the most, which is somebody who's been blessed enough to play all over the continent, is the AFL by far has the best fans and crowd and game day atmosphere. Obviously the two that I can personally vouch for, being Settlers Place would be over in Red Deer, and Energy Center up in Cold Lake. Yeah. That being said, again, my first game with the Jets last year, it was my first experience in Airdrie. I know they're a team that's kind of up on the up and ups now compared to the struggles of the past. But it was my first game there, and they had what looked like to be a sellout. They have a big kind of grandstand. You guys have both played there, kind of that big grandstands along the side there, along their facility, and that was packed. Yeah. And I know Cold Lake's about a 3-hour drive. I don't know how many people from Cold Lake were there, but I can only assume they wouldn't have accounted for much of that place being packed. They had 2 food trucks.
No, Anton has done a great job down there with the Irish over the last few years. We'll have him on when we do the Airdrie Irish preview. But yes, I love that. And Airdrie, they've really done they've done a great job.
Yeah, they also traveled pretty good for national the AFL final up in Cold Lake. And I know I know all you guys out west are used to driving more or less than we are in Ontario. Mm-hmm. Everything's a good haul. But I mean, to get that many people up there for a 3-hour drive on a Saturday is pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's sweet.
But besides that, pretty much like I can only account for also, I know we had the 2018 national up in Fort Mac, and they had a pretty good atmosphere there, a decent crowd gathering there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, in that heyday of those really good Fort Mac teams, 2015 to 2018, they had some incredible fans out, and they have a great facility out there too. So
yeah, they
have a really nice facility. They get, it's the people latch on to the sport once they've come out and seen it, and they do a great job out there as well.
Yeah, no, they're really in touch with the community. Like, just a perfect example is and I don't think anybody in the history of this league has experienced anything like Fort Mac did with those Fires to come back. Like you spoke before, playing in the Edmonton jerseys and stuff like that. Just the connection they had with the local fire department and all that. It's just unique. You know what I mean? Yeah. A big community. But that being said, also, when you're speaking of the NFC, geography is not exactly on their side. Like, for example, a team like GTA, right? Great product on the field. Perennial winners, exciting players to watch, good athletes, but the stands are usually empty. And that's not a knock at them. It's just, you think of where a team like that's located in Brampton, okay? Let's say within their own cities, 3 major sports teams, the Leafs, the Raps, the Jays. Then you got the TFC, and then you get into this tough thing where as a father, let's say out of the football, besides the family, if I'm taking my kid, now I have affiliation to the league, but say a father with no affiliation, right? You're taking your son to the game. Are you going to take him to a men's league, or are you going to take him to a university game or the Argos game? It kind of becomes white noise, if you know what I mean. And that's no disrespect to the teams. It's just you fall down the list. Whereas some of these smaller markets, like what Red Deer has built, what Cold Lake, and that's not a knock at these other organizations. Like, it's just it's very impressive. There's a tie with the community. It's like, even you, like, not to blow smoke up your ass, but like you with Red Deer, for example, dude, they're in touch with the coaching and making it now where a lot of these kids have somewhere to look forward to and play, and just the atmosphere there. Like, when you're coming out, dude, it's not just, people are generally excited for the product. They're interconnected. You know what I mean? It's just something that's kind of lost in Ontario in that regard. And I don't think it's their fault. Some of the northern teams are an exception.
Yeah. And I think you're so right. You're hitting the nail on the head. And I'll get Omari to talk about this in a second, but it's hard for I played for the Wolfpack last year, and the only people that come to watch Wolfpack games are family members. Right. And when you talk about the Bucks, though, we have, because, we're basically competing with the Red Deer Rebels, and that's it. But we never play at the same time. Like, so we have a built-in community of football fans that are not related to the team members in any means, but are just football fans because we're able to pump it out. And that is the advantage of small cities. Omari, talk about the Wolfpack. I know it's hard to kind of get that buzz going.
It is different with Wolfpack side. We definitely get some family. The one thing I noticed is with the bigger cities, I'll say this with like Edmonton too, is that you get guys like friends and family from other communities. Like, one thing I noticed when Cold Lake played us here in Calgary, Cold Lake, I guess Cold Lake must have had some people who they knew in Calgary, and they also came out because they were like, oh, there's also well, I have two friends now playing. I have friends on Wolfpack and Cold Lake, and so that's one thing we kind of got here. I noticed a bit because I had some friends, mutual friends, who came out, but it's I think it's definitely grown, and I find the home opener is always likes to stick out, but there's a lot of sounds happening in my background here. Sorry, I have to mute those, but sorry about that. But just to, I guess, to keep it moving here. It's growing, but it can definitely obviously get better because, that always ties into how teams can help pay for other things like, butts in the stands. And with that, typically is admission, and that can help other things too. But I'll let you take it away here. I'm just going to mute everything back.
Yeah, I think you're right, Omari. And I think hopefully, again, that's what we have so many goals with this podcast. But I hope that this podcast, ignites people's passion, because I think when people, I want to get as many voices on here as possible, like I said, because I want people to know who these guys are. And because when you get an attachment to someone, when you hear someone speak, when you hear someone's personality come through, and Dave, being vulnerable, speaking about his father and his brother, and it allows people to kind of see the human side, and then people want to cheer for that. I just watched the Full Swing golf documentary on Netflix. I'm big into golf now, COVID, but absolutely loved it. And now I'm cheering for all these new golfers that I got to watch, kind of outside of golf. I got to see their personalities. So that's really, really neat. Dave, what about, and as objective as you can be, but talent level, what are you seeing at the top end talent in Ontario compared to the AFL?
Yeah, talent wise is a little bit of a tricky one, and it's not to be worried to offend anybody. That's not the issue here. It's more or less, I think, and not being just that old cliche, but I think a baller is a baller. You know what I mean? Now, it kind of depends. That's where, again, talent wise, Ontario clearly has an advantage recruiting, gathering wise, players, just due to the huge populations of some of these cities. You know what I mean? You compare, you compare any given AFL team. And I know you have Edmonton and Calgary there, but Calgary, for the most part, up until of late, split the area locally and still do at Airdrie. But you take a city like Toronto, and and again, it's not a knock. GTA's done a good job of building their program. This isn't if you just put a team there, you can be good. But because on the other side of it, you have a team like the Raiders that have struggled of late. You know what I mean? But it's just tough. That being said, you have 11 universities, I think 6 junior clubs in Ontario, if I'm correct. And Ontario, in Alberta, what do you have? 2?
Yeah, University of Calgary, University of Edmonton.
Yeah.
That in itself, it hampers and it helps Ontario, because now the great players, now I don't believe, now if there wasn't universities, you'd get a 5-star guy coming. We still do, but for the most part, they'd be still trying to break CFL camps and shit. You know what I mean? But besides that, and you have 3 junior programs, I think, right?
We have two Edmonton and 1 Calgary.
Yeah, which are all within a 2-hour drive of
3
each
hours,
other.
Yeah, 3 hours.
Exactly. So that's it shows that the AFL has got to do, not you have to, but you guys do you have to do a much better job recruiting wise, or self-building, right? Because you're not just going to have all these guys coming out of university or all this shit. And I know a lot of guys who play from junior, kind of Okanagan and that, find their way into the AFL. But talent wise, I would probably say more or less team wise. I think some of the top teams that I've seen, at least in my 10 years or so with this league, I think when you get the 2 top teams, depending, I know the travel plays huge factor, as much as people don't want to say it does. As far as the national championship speaking, but when you get to those top teams, man, some of those, just for example, the 2015, we won the national by 1 point with GTA over Calgary. That Gators team in 2015 was yoked, dude. They had a Heck Creighton winner in Heather.
Jordan Heather,
Yeah, Heather, sorry, I mispronounced the name. But and there's enough names, we'll get on it later, but there's enough guys there that it's that team in itself. Teams like that is talent wise, I'd more connect with what teams were more stacked. As far as ballers go, I think it's more, but it's easier in Ontario to draw, just because everything's so close compared to Alberta.
Yeah, I think I know with the AFL we have since I started in the league in 2010, the talent has gotten significantly better, which I absolutely love because I want to play against better people. I want to put a better product on the field, and it's no fun if you're not playing against good players. And I think you're right, is like, how do we recruit? And I think that's why we see in the AFL a lot of, our top end players will come from out of province. And I think now we're really trying to push the youth movement. Like you mentioned earlier, Dave, with, myself personally, I'm able to, I don't want to, take all the credit, but there's going to be, 7 to 8 Sylvan Lake players playing on the Bucks this year that probably don't know as much about the Bucks if, I'm not coaching them and playing and talking about them, and, they're coming to my games and seeing that stuff. Right. So it's just that kind of branching out and realizing that we have a product and we want to get people and get talent and creating a valuable alternative to junior football for kids that, aren't ready for junior football, like whether it be, physically or emotionally. Because I know I've got kids that are definitely physically ready to play junior, but emotionally they're not ready to go live on their own right now. They're not ready to take that step. And I'm like, you know what? All the power to you. Come to a AFL. We practice twice a week. We put the work in. We play games. You get that film. You get that experience. You get to grow a little bit more. You get to play against grown men, and then you can, move on in your career. And I think that the AFL's ability to do that is really special.
Absolutely. I want to add to that just with, people, guys coming in as they're young, and you're in a time where you go, you make so much decisions where like, oh, where do I want to go to school? Do I want to go to school? This, that, junior. And, I was once where like I had my mind like set on like, hey, I want to go and make a junior team coming out of high school. But I know there's some kids where, especially when you come from like smaller towns where you get to fully relocate and go somewhere, bigger city, this, that, AFL is definitely getting to a point where it's a great, I don't want to say substitute because I don't want to discount junior, because I got many great experiences there and lessons learned and like relationships. And, I don't want to say junior's higher than AFL. I don't want to put any of that out there, but it's another spot to go where you can develop yourself and then progress along the way. And I feel like the freedom that you can get with it coming from AFL, like I just think of it as like, if you're an 18-year-old kid, say you don't want to go junior right away, play a year of AFL, then go to junior, you play out your last 4 years, and you're like, hey, you know what? I want to go back to the AFL because like they actually like kept me in the game, and then that just feeds the league more, and you have to develop in another spot and come back, and just a good cycle like that is healthy, I believe. Yeah,
I 100% agree, and I hope that. I hope that we can see that potential of the league and moving forward. Okay, so I know this has kind of been the hot button thing. I know that many people have asked me about this, and we had some questions on it, and I do want to talk about it because I think it's important to A, bring entertainment to people, but B, kind of open things up. And I know you've been open about this stuff anyways, Dave. So of course, as comfortable as you can, let's talk in and dive into kind of the 2022 drama that you kind of had down east and kind of what brought you to Cold Lake. And I'm going to start quickly. I pulled up a Facebook post you made back in October, shortly after you won the national championships. And well, here's the thing, man. And I really appreciate people that are true to themselves and speak their minds. And I mean, here's the reality. Everyone reading these posts, like they're reading it, they're loving it. And so we're going to talk about it. So I won't read the whole thing, but I do want to start with a paragraph here. And I want to talk about this game. So you said week 1, the Tri-City Outlaws roll through their opponent on the road. Week 2, so you started with, you started with the Tri-City Outlaws in 2022. So then you say the Tri-City Outlaws is on the road again, this time an 18-hour road trip. 18 hours. Holy fuck.
Yeah, round trip, man. It's more or less, it'd be 9. That's putting in the stops. If you're going to go pedal to the metal down, it'd probably be more 7 there and back. But still, you're talking like you flip it, you could go to Philly and back probably in 7, or at least Pennsylvania.
Oh man, the first half was a dog fight in the rain, with the game being tied 12-12. At the half, as the teams went to the field for the second half, the lights failed to come back on, and the game was suspended. One of the refs made an interesting comment as to how they were having issues the past several weeks with the lights not working, and how this sort of thing should have been fixed prior to the game being held, where a fellow league organization had to travel 18 hours. So first off, let's talk about this. You drive 18 hours, the lights go off. Talk about it.
Yeah. So, dude, okay. So, Sault Ste. Marie, for people familiar with the NFC, it's like you guys were mentioning the wild, you and Vince there, the wild Grand Prairie trips, right? Now, I'm not as familiar with that, but Sault is that trip here for the NFC.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Sault Ste. Marie is the Grand Prairie of Ontario. Okay.
Yeah, not even the knock on the city, because it's, for the most part, it's a beautiful northern city, but that you know, what stays in Sault, or what happens in Sault stays in Sault. It's that kind of road trip stuff. Yeah. So that's the wild trip for the most part. But this time we're talking a little bit down the road, and now I'm with my with my girl and my youth, and we're gonna drive up. He's gonna watch me play the game, which is one of the reasons for joining Tri-City, with amongst others, which we'll get into. But they were going to come up. They just went to Sarnia. Our first 2 games were pretty far on the road. So Sarnia, then Sault. We drive up there, which is a good haul, dude. Like that's a good haul, 7 hours. We get there. Okay. First of all, the game's a little delayed, the refs, which is totally cool. That happens. We get out. Long story short, good first half. The lights don't come out. One's like a little like flickering, you know. So to get to the long story, like I said, so the refs were at the midfield. Everyone's chatting kind of. And I hear the fucking ref be like, yeah, that we kind of had this issue prior to the prior week prior before. So I'm kind of sitting there. Now we all get in the locker room. Now you're not talking, dude, we didn't travel on the fucking charter jet up here. You know what I mean? Like, we all put money in. There's hotels, and like, first of all, beyond not finishing the half and people being there with the families, where is the fucking compensation? Like, that's not 7 hours on today's gas, dude. That ain't cheap. You know what I mean? So So I drive back 7 hours. I had to apologize to my wife and kids, because I'll tell you, one half of football didn't do it. I need 60 minutes a week to be able to integrate into society, myself personally. You know what I mean? So I had a half an hour. It was a long trip back. Let's put it that way. It wasn't enjoyable. But we get back, and I put a post. Well, anyways, that was that trip. That was
okay, and then continue the story, because you continue on that post. There's something about being suspended by the NFC. Yeah, continue your story. Yeah.
So to indulge,
please do.
The next day I was kind of pissed off. Cheese, you know what I mean? Like, there was no talk. Put it this way, okay? To keep a long thing short, and again, to fucking be real with you, Sault Ste. Marie's team owner is the president of the league. Okay. If Sault Ste. Marie took a trip down to Sarnia and the fucking lights didn't come on at half, dude, there would have been fucking hell to pay. Okay. Hell to pay. But since it was Tri-City going up to the Sioux, it was kind of like nothing was made of it, first of all. Okay. So it is what it is. Let's just put that out there. So I put a post up on Facebook with, I don't even know the fucking dude's name, but it was Dancing in the Dark, with like, was the backdrop music, and it was kind of like, it was Lights Out or something. But I don't know, something about Lights Out.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, went as social media posts. Social media posts that were derogatory,
detrimental
or something
to the
negative
league,
towards the league.
Yeah.
Thank you. Detrimental to the league, which is a whole nother counterpoint on itself. I could say if I came on and I was like threatening officials or something, dude, but it was a fucking little cute, smart ass post. And I don't remember signing any fucking contract or anything that obligated me to my own personal social
that's weird.
media
I don't I know for a fact there's no social media bylaw in the AFL, and honestly, that's the post I was reading from, was the post you're talking about. And I mean, you're clearly upset about something that I think 100% of people would be upset about, and you're calling it out.
Yes. So that led to, I think, feathers being ruffled. Now, there was already some feathers being ruffled. To get into the long story short, obviously everyone knows my association with GTA. I bled orange and black. But my work had me in Cambridge. For the people, probably you're not as familiar out west, but I mean, locally, Cambridge, Tri-City, it's the same area. with my work and stuff, it was a long haul, and coaching my son now, it was just, I was trying to get back. It's a half an hour drive from my work to get home, then another 40 minutes to, which you guys say, just probably laughing at me out west. You're like, dude, I drive 2 hours. But I mean, it sometimes a 40-minute drive in Ontario from Hamilton to Toronto when you hit the city can take 2 hours. You know what I mean? That being said, it was just easier for me to be able to coach my son and be able to get to Burlington, 30 minutes from my house and 20 minutes to Burlington to coach, and to be able to make it to Tri-City, which was local in Cambridge area. So that, along with another thing, not to sound like a jaded ex-girlfriend, it was no shit like that. There was an interview with Double D Shots, which we did, which again, I posted on my social media, perfectly respectful, nothing ignorant. For some reason, it was controlled that it couldn't be put out there, which again, I had an issue with because, dude, I'm not playing like I played professional arena in the States. Okay, there's contracts, or there is no contract here. There's no obligation. Nobody owns my rights or my ability to speak freely, which again, it was totally respectful. Nothing negative towards absolutely anybody. Totally promoting the GTA brand. But that, along with my work, it just allowed me, I thought Tri-City would be the best option, you know what I mean, to go with. It's my last year, and I also needed somewhat of a challenge, and within the league, not like I'm fucking Tom Brady, dude, we're talking CMFL men's league, but I mean, I had run out of things to kind of do, and the only challenge kind of left, which isn't my main reason for going, because I know a lot of motherfuckers are going to hear this and be like, oh, that's it, man, the other shit's bullshit. But I wanted a challenge. I wanted to compete against what had been the best, which was GTA. You know what I mean? So that led to then allegations that now, me being at Tri-City, I was trying to take players from GTA and tell them, come here, we'll pay you and stuff. Which, dude, listen, man, I don't got that fucking kind of money, man. I work as I got a kid, like I got rent to pay, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't got the money to throw. I'm not Jerry Jones out here. Second of all, it defeats the purpose. I myself am a person who loves, and I know both you gentlemen I'm speaking to are the same, which is most football players out there, which, unless you're trying to break the league, you're only playing out here because you have a competitive bone in your body. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have to, dude. We work 9 to 5s or whatever you work. I get up at friggin' 5 a.m., you know? So that being said, I thought I'd switch over. I wouldn't pay, or I wouldn't do none of that. But I think it was guys. And I understand from Didi's point of view. And I'm not saying Didi was one who come up with these lies. I don't know where it came from. I have my thoughts.
Just to kind of clarify here. So Didi is the GTA owner. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. He's the owner. And he's the man who.
Yeah. And so he was the one who, like, he was saying you were trying to take GTA players. Like, he brought that to the league.
No, I don't believe so. I have never, and Didi, to be honest with you, from my personal relationship with him, he doesn't seem, that's not his kind of, it doesn't seem like that would be his route, or at least from what I know of him. He's not, that's more of a fucking sniveler move. You know what I mean? And I think I know on the other half, there's some minions underneath that I think it came from.
So sorry, Didi, I don't mean to interrupt again, but what is, because I know, speaking of Double D Shots, he commented on the post that I made earlier today asking for questions, and I know he was kind of intertwined with this, and he said, we all know what we want to ask and find out about the Uncensored podcast. Dave Cuthbertson, we want to know about the NFC and the GTA and what it's going to take to get our shit together. Don't forget, we need to get the tea on why you and Didi are not on good grounds and how we can get this fixed. You guys are good for the league and can do so much more being a part of the same team. God bless. So is there a rift between you and Didi, or?
Well, I think honestly, me personally speaking, from my behalf, the problem I had with certain individuals is trying to strip a guy from fucking playing football. You know what? Especially in my point in my career, dude, it was basically at that point my last season, and to take it from me, I took personal. Now, on the other half, I can see from his point of view, like, and I don't, because it was incorrect. But I think for somebody who stood alongside him building that GTA empire, you know what I mean? And all the years and accomplishments we've done. And I'm not taking any credit for it. That guy built his brand. He's the fucking owner, you know what I mean? But everyone knows I promoted that brand like no tomorrow, and I led that team. And I was alongside it from the inception, Titans to GTA. I think he kind of took it personal, like betrayal,
like you
you know what I
leaving, he
mean?
took
And I think somebody
personally.
took it personal, kind of like, dude, we were with this through the whole run. Now what the fuck are you doing? You're going to go to a rival and try to bring down what the fuck we or I built? Fuck you. But Didi also takes me as the kind of guy, which I know the players would, as a fuck Cuth. I'll see it between the white lines when the whistle blows. Not try to, you know what I mean?
Not
That's
try to
the kind
snake.
of dude Yeah, I've always known him as that dude. Like, you know what? He would. I'd even see him being like, dude, I'll give you $100 if somebody takes his ass out. And I'm not saying he says that. Let's no county game. But he's that kind of guy. You know, he'd snivel. But I just think it was one of those things, and that also led into then the NFC with the suspension that I have to then apologize to Didi, to Neil, the whole board, and that if not, I would receive. Oh, and then I would still receive a 3-game suspension. But the suspension was very fitting because it landed on my last game, meaning that I would miss the game for Tri-City versus GTA, and I would return the week after. So at that point, it was at my head in my last season. I ended up contacting. I had contact in the crack. I'm very close. I know Glenn and I know Damo out there. And when I first came over to Red Deer, when I came over in the COVID season, there was no ball out in Ontario. I was talking to a couple teams in the beginning when I didn't know wherever, and just wherever I felt that season really wasn't, because there was no national, and it was still important to win a championship, but it was more, I wanted something different that COVID year. You know what I mean? Because there was no national, I wanted a different experience. I ended up falling in with Red Deer, but Cold Lake was one of the teams I spoke to, and they're good guys up there. So I ended up going back. A lot of you guys, for whatever reason, right, wasn't at Red Deer last season. So I ended up going out, falling in with Cold Lake and played the game in Airdrie. That, I know this is like a fucking never.
No, this is good. Hey, this is what I say about podcasts. People, if they don't want to listen, they can turn it off. But I know people are interested in the story, so don't feel rushed at all. Just keep telling your story with as much goodness as you can.
Yeah. No, I'm trying to keep it candid. Sorry about the language,
you're all good, man.
It's uncensored. It's uncensored. But you in the end. So okay. So that led to then Barry Russian, which was again the owner of Sault Ste. Marie, right? And the president of the league, contacting the AFL saying that my release and signing with my release from Tri-City, which I had from Tri-City, which made phone contact with Vince Ross of the AFL. So that I made sure that was clear before I played, which hence why that game wasn't turned over for Airdrie side, because I was an eligible player playing for Cold Lake. But I guess because the suspension was upheld, he was saying that I'm not able to play that game. But so when, into the long story short, I went through this fucking constitution of the AFL and the NFC. And I mean, dude, comb through this shit like a detective from the FBI. Every bylaw to make sure I insured, because at this point now we're talking about money and shit, okay? Now we're talking about dealing with out west, right? Not just Tri-City. And so it's not like me just trying to bang heads with, oh, I'm just going to prove myself right. And like, dude, you know, spend your time doing something else with your kid this summer. There was investments in time and flights and things that were already in place to just let it go to that regard. So that being said, combed through this whole fucking bylaw, both constitution, found nothing. I mean, dude, nothing that said that a suspension carries over to either league, and or that you need a release, which I did get, but that you need a release whatever you want to say. And my whole thing was, because, dude, I'm telling you, man, I had to do a long write-up because these guys, like, many things. So what ended up happening, there is no affiliation between either constitution of the AFL and the NFC. They're the complete separate entities within themselves. The only connection is a couple bylaws which combined the two only for the situation of the national championship game. So that being said, it was a straight fuck job. Now that's okay. And furthermore, once I unveiled all this and I brought this to the table, they knew they didn't have a leg to stand on. And now this doesn't include the AFL. The AFL, I came and played there, but this is more Barry.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Taking a grudge on and coming after me. So that being said, he didn't like a post that I put on the next day, which I totally jumped over. I'm not trying to, I better bring in all the facts. I put a post the next day of me sitting in the locker room with Cold Lake gear on, basically saying, go fuck yourself. Like, this is what I do. I play football. You know what I mean? I know people all over the place. You tried to fucking, I'm the author of my story. You're not going to fucking dictate if I play or I don't, old man. I didn't say that, but I'm the author of my story. So, anyways, now with all that new proof or whatever you want to say that I built up and brought to the table, they knew there wasn't a leg to stand on. So now Barry pulled a bitch move again, Barry Russian of the NFC, and said, if you guys allow this guy to play, I am going to withdraw, which again, this is, I believe, false. What do you want to call it? I don't know. Blown smoke. You know what I mean? I don't think he was really going to do it, because when it comes down to it, if the Sault Ste. Marie didn't win, how the fuck are you going to tell another owner you're not going out west? I don't want you to go out there because Dave's playing.
Empty threats.
Go fuck yourself. Yeah. Thank you. Empty threats. That being said, and this is why I hold nothing, because I have very close friends that I've played with that are good guys outside of football, that have won championships, that are on the AFL board. And I hold nothing against them. They did what they had to do to uphold the integrity of that championship game for their conference, which they're representing and they host. And if it comes down to it, what's he going to say? No, he's playing. Fuck it. And take a chance. No, you kind of squash the beef for what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And at that point, that's why I totally respect the executive and that shit on that behalf, because I have nothing against them.
The AFL, the AFL decided then that they were then not going to allow you to play. Is that what happened?
Okay. Yes, they made that, and it was kind of a respect, and to kind of read between the lines, to be honest with you, it was that situation, and they were up forth in front for the most part with me. There was no bullshit, but it was kind of one of these situations where it's like, you know what? I don't know. You're kind of handcuffed, and as an executive, you have to, like, again, uphold the integrity of the fuck. It was probably empty threats, which it probably most likely everyone knew. But also, do you want to sour that relationship at that point? You know what I mean? Like, we just started this podcast off talking about the greatness of having a national championship. And me personally, if I had my choice, I would say, dude, I'm not playing. For every guy that goes out there and busts his ass to take that national championship, I wouldn't want that. I'm not going to fucking go, you know what I mean? I wouldn't want that. So it's kind of like a thing where we came to a head where it's like, it's not more or less giving in, but it was like, let's save everybody's time here and not play this game and find another position where you can still be kind of on the outside feeling the heat of the flames, maybe not in the flames, but you can still, you know what I mean? Keep that going. So I found myself with Cold Lake. Long story short, the football gods had spoken, or whatever the fuck the case may be, because it ended up facing GTA in the national. We were lucky enough to prevail. They were lucky. Like, Cold Lake was lucky enough to come out on top that game. A funny story. The flight back home to Hamilton, I was on the same flight as GTA, the entire football team.
What? Hold on.
You can't make this.
Did you plan that, or like how did that happen?
You can't make this shit up. I wouldn't plan that, because to be honest with you, I can hold my own. But the last thing I'd plan is for one of two reasons. If that game could have went, Cold Lake held their own. But I mean, say that game didn't go the way it went. That would have been the longest flight of my fucking life, bro.
You would have just canceled and drove. Like, see it.
I would have. I would have been like, how much is a fucking Uber from here, Alberta? Yeah. Oh my goodness. But it turned out good. And again, like, these guys, it was nothing against them. It's all in the love of it. Because I know these guys, they know better, and you can't take away. You guys have both played. When you go through, and this ain't NFL films, but when you go through battles with other dudes, anything, dude, you could be playing on the fucking bowling team. When you work with a group of individuals towards a common goal, you know what I mean? Let alone have continued success like that. You can't take that away no matter what the fuck happens. So it was cool in that regard. and the way it turned out, and not to be an ignorant prick, but I sent Barry an email the next day, sitting in the locker room with the trophy with my middle finger, telling them how like the Shaq quote with Kobe, rest in peace. But I mean, I said, hey Barry, tell me how my fucking ass tastes, old man. And I know that shit is ignorant or whatever, but I'm telling you, these guys tried to like do me dirty, and it is what it is. It's no disrespect. I could care here or less for the guy, but I think it became a thing where, and dude, we're talking social media and within the confines of this league. I'm not out there with a million followers or think I'm any hot shit, but I have a somewhat following. I think it became, with the post, like him versus me kind of vendetta. You know what I mean? Hence why I had to drop the email at the end. But my time, obviously, with the NFC has come to an end. But that's what I was saying.
I think I don't think you're being disrespectful at all. And I've just hearing you talk and the passion in which you speak with, it's clear to me that this really should have all been avoided. I mean, it's great for entertainment. Like, reliving this is phenomenal. It's great for a podcast. But the reality is there's a really big communication gap. There's some serious misunderstandings that went on along this way. Like, clearly you were making the decision, the original decision to go to Tri-City based on what was best for you and your family, which how can you ever fault a man for making that decision? And Didi took that the wrong way. He took that personally, which then led to somebody somewhere along the line being a little bit snaky, and then which led to you feeling disrespected, and you reacted how a lot of humans, or most humans, probably would act in those situations. And you're also somebody who speaks their mind. And so I think a lesson for Didi and Barry, and Barry's the president of the league, right? President, yeah. I think the lesson for them is like, you got to understand what kind of smoke you're getting into, because if you're going to go after someone who to be someone like yourself, who speaks his mind and tells the truth and isn't afraid to get out there, then these situations are probably going to happen, right? And normally the person who's right comes out on top. But in this situation, it seems like that you were able to come out on top of this, and you won that championship. And it was unfortunate that it had to come that way. I think that they could have easily just released you or let you keep playing. I think getting upset over a social media post is ridiculous. Like, if that's going to be the case, at some point I'm going to say something on this podcast that's going to piss somebody on the AFL executive off. And does that mean I can be suspended for what I say on this podcast? Like, I'm scared now.
100%, especially in something that I did not use any, especially coming off on a podcast, like dropping some F-bombs here, but the post did not come off vulgar. There was some anger behind it, but it wasn't, no names were mentioned. There was no ignorance or trying to like undercut anybody or bash the league. Everybody knows I promote this league like no tomorrow on both sides, AFL and NFC. And I could see if it was something like that, but it was kind of somebody salty over maybe bringing like hence the pun or whatever, bringing light to the situation. But you know what I mean? I think they just took it salty. People got in their feelings, dude, and then they took it personally against me, and it became a vendetta.
Yeah. And that's really unfortunate that would come that way. So what are your future plans with football? Are you still going to play in the AFL, or are you kind of moving on to coaching your son?
As of now, in the spring and summer, it's kind of going to be a split. We have a new coaching coming up. I'll be coaching him as part of a flight club team. We'll be playing in the States, so there'll be some good trips there. Game and tournaments, Michigan, New York, Rochester, like Buffalo area. Some of them for like regionals will take place down in Tennessee. So there's some good trips there. I will be playing not just because I'm an idiot. And I like the contact. I miss it, but mostly because of what we spoke about, to be truthful. The way last season ended, I know it was great. It turned out to be a blessing in disguise in a way. But as a football player and any athlete, I don't care what sport you're playing, and both you gentlemen again know, you want your last game. And I know we don't all know. Hopefully we do, but we don't all know when our last game will be. But I want to at least be able to unlace a set of cleats and unclip a set of shoulder pads and unclip a chin guard on my last game.
Yeah,
you know what
totally.
I'm saying? And it just means something to me. And for those reasons, I'll be playing. And this is one more year. Now I know I'm not trying to be like that guy, but last year took a bad turn. So I think this year we'll finish it in that regard. And then I owe the obligation, like both you gentlemen probably know, and most men, Vince mentioned on the podcast, you owe the obligation to your family. You know what I mean? We both know this takes a lot of time in the country. It's not like the South, or we're in a country where how many months of nice weather do we got?
Yeah.
4 at the most. The season takes up about 3 on weekends and your practices. So it's a big commitment in that regard. You want to start giving and I'm not trying to act like I'm NFL retirement and give back but it does take those times and camping trips and stuff like this. Sorry. And with the kid and the coaching, it's just, and the body, it's just time to kind of, you know what I mean? Take that. Let go.
So are you going back to Cold Lake, or are you coming to Red Deer? I'm just gonna. Hey, look, I'm just putting it out there. That's what we do in this podcast. So,
100%. To be honest and keep it real with you, dude, I think it's going to. Well, I don't think. I know it's going to be Cold Lake, and as much as one of my greatest seasons that I've enjoyed myself was Red Deer. To be honest with you, not blow smoke up your ass or go off topic. But what you guys have built there, something about that. I was in my own personal bad space. We all were with the COVID, correct? We have a lot of things were taken away, especially as athletes on professional or any level. Professional, you guys got facilities. Don't tell me guys on the NFL didn't have multi-million-dollar facilities they weren't able to still sneak into. Guys like me and you didn't have the gym. We were hoping a buddy had a rack or a set that we could get some work in. The lack of the camaraderie in the football and just the contact, you know what I mean, for a bit there, and Ontario was having a season, went out to Alberta, and just kind of what you guys had. I generally feel lucky to be able to spend that season with Central Alberta because of it was a very unique situation with 20 years in the making, and just the backing of your guys' alum, and how it was the one time that I can't remember if any team, and I didn't have the pleasure of playing university. Probably in that regard, you feel the same, where you win a championship and you felt there were like decades of people that felt like they won that too. You know what I mean, dude? And you would know better than me. I was just, as a player and experiencing it, I've never seen so many people so happy for a champion. It was like all the heartache and being so close. And that's why I'm excited. One of the reasons with Cole, like I owe Damo and I owe Glenn, because last year, dude, as much as I love Red Deer and I owe you guys for that year, these guys really, they could have took a different route, like kind of, you know what I mean? Or not wanted to fucking, and I didn't cause no headaches, but it could have been like whatever, but they made me feel at home and during an important part of that, and still integrate into the team and be a factor in that. So, and again, like we spoke before, now with all the guys coming back to, and that's not leaving Airdrie out of the mix or any teams like that, Edmonton, but I mean, with you guys coming back, and obviously one of the most potential offenses that this league seen is of recent. Obviously, you have the Gators and Fort Mac and Cold Lake, but I mean, Blaze is what he is, and you guys have been on point. I seen it firsthand. I mean, to be able to come up against something like that, and just, I'm not, again, no disrespect to these other organizations. I'm not leaving Airdrie or the Wolf Pack or any of the rest out. You don't know. You know what I mean? You're one injury away. God bless. Hopefully, knock on wood, or anything from happening. But just both organizations and the fan base, and it just, the league's kind of really like tight as far as some of the top teams, as far as like being competitive in their own nature. I know Airdrie fell off, but they had a couple key injuries to key guys, quarterback and running back. But it's just, I love the competition. And I just kind of want to finish off what I felt I didn't really properly finish off with Cold Lake. But
no,
yeah,
hey, look,
buddy.
listen, that's totally fine. And I want everyone to be happy. I want you to be happy with where you're going. And I know you're a loyal guy, and I know, you're giving back to Damon and to Glenn, who obviously, took you in and helped you out through all that stuff. And I appreciate that. And I think, the Bucks culture is second to none. And I know for me, when we won that championship in 2021, it was 11 years for me never being able to crack that. And then when we won it, it was one of the top 2, 3, the best day of my life is obviously my wedding, but it might be the second best day of my life. Like, winning that championship was something I'll never forget. And sometimes I get a little emotional even thinking about it. But it was, and I was glad to be able to share that with you, Dave. And
It was a great night.
yeah,
It was a
it
great
was
night.
amazing. And okay, so just quickly before we end here, I got a couple fan questions that were posted that we got to ask you. So Devontae Hobbs, good guy, good receiver, love playing against him. Fort Mac guy.
Yes, sir.
He
Yes,
wants
sir.
to know, what do you think it's going to take to get a true national championship game, adding in the Quebec League, which is kind of interesting because, you know, as you know, in junior, we've got the 3 teams that compete for the national championship, or the 3 leagues. Could we do that with the
Yes.
Quebec League, the NFC, and the AFL? What do you think?
This is the thing that's interesting too, because of recent news as of actually this year. The Quebec League LFS 12 is taking a hiatus. Again, not to get back into it, we'll leave the story for another day. But they apparently, I talked to 2 of their top teams, Saint Jean Huskies and the Laval Bulldogs, which account for the last 2, 3, 6 championships of that league in Quebec. Both requested to join the NFC. From what I hear, I don't know why they would make it up. This isn't a bashy NFC session, dude. I'm strictly hearsay. Asked to join, and they said they got no response. Now, I don't know the logistics or whatever, but that being said, they had to take a hiatus. Not the NFC's fault, just stating. So they were trying to get in there. So I think they'll take a year off. But to answer your question, let's say that didn't happen. I think something for that, putting Laval is very good. The Maritimes League would be very difficult for the reason that they run May to June. And most of their players, for the most part, are younger guys that go out and start out for St. FX and the Mounties and stuff like that. So just time-wise, they wouldn't have the roster capability at that point in the season to face off. But I think you could do, like you said, if Quebec reestablished, or whether they join the NFC or not, if you had the 3 established leagues, I think beyond all the logistics and money-wise, you would have to do like you said. I think if you had one team host and another team travels, then you'd have only, how would that work? Because I know they had the Intergold Cup. So say the Ontario host, BCFC would travel to the P, but then you have to see, the trouble with that is having that one team travel twice.
Yeah, it's a rotation that the CGFL does when it comes to the national, where like it'll go from BFC, PFC, OFC, and like, I guess the home team of that league gets to stay, and then they travel to that place, or it works out to where like that the home team, the league or division doesn't get to travel.
Yeah, often. It'll be like
something like that, where it works out to where it's a rotation.
Yeah, so fair. Like if the BCFC is hosting the Nationals, it'll be the PFC, which is the Alberta League, that plays the OFC in the Intergold, which is the national semifinal. Yeah. And the BC League gets a bye to the final, and then the next year the Alberta League gets a bye to the final, and the BC League travels to Ontario, whatever. So you would have to have 2 teams traveling twice. But I mean, you could. My thought process, if Quebec really wanted to do, like, let's say Quebec comes back next year and is like, hey, we want to be a part of this national championship. I think what you do is you just logistically, we can't have one team traveling twice. So you just would say Quebec and Ontario play each other, and then the winner plays Alberta. And I mean, if that ever comes to it, I really think that would be a cool idea, because I know that Quebec League is good because you've got guys like, I'm forgetting his name now, but you'll know who he is, Dave. He played for Fort Mac for a number of years, and he played for the Bulldogs. Jordan Alexis, super stud.
We had, dude, my quarterback when I played for the Val was Miles Gibbon. Like, that guy spent time in Southern Alabama, like down in the NCAA. Like, they have, you guys know, like Quebec's a different breed. Some of them guys out there.
Yeah, that would be. I would think that'd be really cool. Okay, Devin Stewart, longtime Fort Mac player, absolute beast, fullback / defensive lineman.
Yeah.
He asked, since you've played all over, what is the best team you've ever played on?
I would say, and I've played on a lot of good teams, and it's kind of tough to say because unless you and this ain't like a cop out, but unless you have the two teams square off for 60 clips, it's hard to say what team. You know what I mean? But probably it'd have to be, as far as athletes and who I would say would be a very hard time for defenses to match up against, it would probably be the 2015 GTA All-Stars. We had Tommy D at the helm slinging, and probably the 2019 Laval Bulldogs. As far as it was one of the stupidest receiving cores I've ever had the pleasure to play with, and obviously we had Mark Gibbons slinging.
Cool, that's sweet. Okay, last one.
One
go
question,
ahead, Omari.
one question I want to add in, just for the trying to add in the Maritimes and Quebec leagues. When I look at other provinces that I feel have the community to back like a men's league, even like maybe a small format like starter league, would you think it'd be better off in like a BC or a Saskatoon, both next to Alberta or Saskatchewan?
I personally speaking would feel, and I know the BCFC, and this is kind of going off not being as knowledgeable on the provinces per se, but I would say I think Saskatoon would be good, just because they seem like they're so diehard over their football. You know what I mean? It's almost like a Quebec thing in a way, and I know it's men's league, but I feel if you got in the right, again, travel and all that, but if you put the right teams, I feel like Saskatoon. But again, BC has some big markets, but it's a different, that West Coast is it's a different lifestyle kind of, where I feel Saskatoon might be able to, you could tap into the local fan that doesn't have somebody on the team, maybe that would commit to that, just that prairie lifestyle, slow moving, might it, like a community could build around a team or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be sweet if this guy. I growing up in BC, I know how much of a football hotbed it is, and I do think that because in BC you can have great travel in BC. Like you can have teams in Vancouver, Delta, Surrey, Abbotsford, Chilliwack, all within an hour of each other. So I think the ability for someone to, an ability for someone to create a league in BC is there. I don't know how, and we'll talk to Jim Lightfoot on this podcast, and maybe he'll have an idea of like how someone even start. Like I'd like to talk to the people. If anyone knows who started the AFL and if they're still alive, like I'd like to talk to those people. Like, how did you even think about starting? And same with the NFC. Like I'd like to talk to those people. But anyways, we're going to have you on again, Dave, closer to the season. I know people are going to enjoy this podcast. I really appreciate you taking your time. I know it's like 11:30 there in Ontario right now. So thanks so much, brother, for coming on.
No problem.
Omari, let everyone know where they can find us and all that great stuff.
Yes, you can, of course, catch the podcast on all available podcast platforms, Spotify, Instagram, Google Podcasts as well. You can be able to catch the full episode on YouTube if you guys like to catch your stuff on YouTube. Comment, like, subscribe. I think we've been seeing some of the ratings coming in. Everyone's been giving us 5-star. Hey, that's great. Just like your favorite Uber Eats, skip the dish. Give us that 5-star rating. Hey, you know what? Things are growing, things are moving, and we're looking forward to the next episode here. So appreciate you guys reaching in, and for the questions that we've been getting on the Facebook, we're definitely going to be rolling back to that. And I think it's just allowing the community to interact and try to bridge that again with the Discord stuff. So yeah. Appreciate you guys here supporting us.
Yeah, and next week, I should have mentioned that we're going to start our team previews for the season. So we're going to start interviewing a couple people from each team to kind of talk about the team. So next week we're going to do the Jets to start off as the defending champs. So we'll have Glenn Dembicki, Teague Sherman is going to come back and join us. Maybe a couple others. I'm going to reach out and get some Jets players on to talk about their season. We're going to talk to Glenn about his history in the league because he's got a deep one. He's self-admittedly not as great of a storyteller as Ryan Belrose. He let me know that. So, but I still want to hear from his story. So Dave, you got anything you want to say before we head off?
Not the most part. Pretty much just we appreciate you guys for putting this out there. You know what I mean? I personally speaking look forward to hearing from individual players that I've had the pleasure to play against, but don't really know personally, you know what I mean, or their lives or their stories. It's a great thing. Sometimes with your teammates, you get to learn because you spend all that time. That's what I'm pretty much looking forward to. We appreciate you guys for putting this out there, and I look forward to hearing from a few players and just the history of the league.
Man, we appreciate you saying that. All right, Omari,
Appreciate
thanks
it.
again. Dave, thank you. And we'll have this out tomorrow, and we'll see you guys next week. See you, boys.
All right. Take care, folks.
Ciao.